Being 7:06 p.m., I call the Lisle Library District Special Board Meeting for January 13th, 2021 to order. The Lisle Library District recognizes Governor Pritzker's most recent Executive Order number 2020-74, which extends Executive Order number 2020-07 as amended by 2020-33 and 2020-44. The Government Emergency Administration Act number 100-06-40, which suspends certain requirements of the Open Meetings Act, allowing library trustees to participate remotely. All motions will require a roll call vote. Can I have roll call, please?
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Thomas Duffy.
Here.
Thomas Hummel.
Here.
Aaron Larson. Here. Jenny Norton.
She on you, Jenny? Thumbs up.
Liz Sullivan.
Here.
I think she said here.
Emily Swistat.
Here.
Next item on the agenda is opportunity for visitors to speak. We have a couple of visitors, so if you just want to come up to the microphone and you'll have 5 minutes. Speak.
President Hummel, thank you for the opportunity to address the board this evening. I've watched the past board meetings regarding the plans and renovations to the library with great interest, particularly last month's presentation by choosing architecture firm she and Naval Partner. I was particularly glad that among the factors that the architect will take into account is the fact that the library is in a residential neighborhood, and that the architect wants to make sure that the library is being a good neighbor as a plan.
Could you stop it for a second? Sorry, the feedback is really bad, and I'm not hearing him at all.
Okay.
And if no one's speaking, can we just have a line muted?
Has somebody got a live, probably one of the, I don't know.
So I think somebody has their phone and their computer on. If you could just mute while we have our public comment session. Okay, thank you. You can start again, thank you.
Go ahead, you're good.
Thank you. I was particularly glad to hear that among the factors that the architect will take into account is the fact that the library is in a residential neighborhood, and that the architect wants to make sure that the library is being a good neighbor as it plans and executes this project. Normally, I come and speak to you as a Lisle resident, whose interest here is as a fan and supporter of the library. I'm actually friends of the Lisle Library member too, actually, though I think my membership is probably expired. I usually renew at the book sale. When I first came here and developed a real fondness for this place as a young, voracious reader, carrying out bags of books every week before the new section of the library was even built, I think, and have been benefiting from this library and its services ever since. But today, I'm here as a neighbor with a neighbor's concerns. I'm actually probably one of your closest neighbors as it happens. I hear the garbage truck each morning at 6 in the morning, beeping as it backs up to empty out your dumpster. From my back porch, I can see the library's brightly lit entrance canopy and watch the headlights of cars driving through the parking lot on their way home at closing time. Being close to the library has many benefits, certainly, but the fact that my home is adjacent to a major public building is unavoidable, inescapable. However, the presence of this bustling public building in a residential neighborhood is made much more palatable by the fact that there are these wonderful wooded areas with tall trees and thick brush between the library and with its street lights and its headlights, and your neighbors, whether it's your neighbors to the east on Front Street or neighbors like me to the south on Reedy. These natural barriers help block the lights and sounds of a busy public place and act as a buffer between this public place and the private homes around it in a way you never could with a mere 5-foot fence. And quoting from a comment on the 2017 engagement survey, the library's native landscape is iconic Lisle. Based on other comments I've heard at these meetings, I think there are many others who enjoy the natural environment surrounding the library too. We're the Arboretum Village, after all. I know some of this natural buffer is on lot 38 to the east, and I heard the architects mention last time that this lot may be helpful in managing parking and stormwater concerns. I hope that, while evaluating this possible use of the lot, the board will also keep the value of a natural woodland buffer between the library and your neighbors in mind as you make those decisions. I would like to think that with proper planning, all of these diverse goals could be accomplished. Thank you again for this opportunity to address the board. I know the goal of this project and this board is to improve the library so it can better serve everybody. But I hope that you'll keep the concerns and perspectives of your immediate neighbors in mind as well. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment?
And the person can identify themselves. I think that's appropriate protocol to identify yourself. I'm Ray Soiga, I live in Lisle. I am a library card holder. I am a taxpayer and lived here for quite a long time, as with most of my family. I found out about this meeting. I understand this was kind of a private meeting, but it's public, for a couple selected interest groups, Library Foundation and Women's Club. So, but somebody told me about it, so that's why I'm here. Just want to give people a few facts to the stakeholders. First of all, I came before this board, and I have a simple request for this board. Put the question of whether this library renovation should be built before the taxpayers. I asked it to be put in as part of the April election period. I put it as an advisory referendum that I asked just for the people, for the stakeholders, who are on. I asked each library board member individually to to support that. It was crickets from each person. That's the essence of why I'm here. Something like this that is going to range, and I've seen the presentation, is going to range anywhere from $5 to $15 million or more. Needs to be, you need to get the people's buy-in. Even though you don't have to because you have the money from years of over taxation. You have the money or you can finance it. But either way, that $5 to $15 million is being paid for by the taxpayers of Lisle. Those are the facts. And if this idea, and this whole idea is such a great idea, that the referendum should pass with flying colors. So, anyhow, so I just want to give you all that back. Regardless, so I don't know what you're going to hear, but think about it: $5 to $15 million of your money going to invest in this library. Even though over the last 5 years, card holders are down 20%. Checkout of tangible books is down. Online access is up. And which tells me that is there really a need to really do an overhaul of a brick and mortar building? Instead, maybe invest in electronics or maybe invest in the maintenance that wasn't done, though the library was closed for 3 months. All the maintenance projects could have been done. And Karen, you had a nice Facebook post on your Facebook page listing all the items that weren't done, and I thank you for that. I saw that a few months ago. Let's take care of the maintenance. Let's take care, and then put this before all the voters. Because how many of you are on from the library, Friends of the Library, and Women's Club? Maybe 20 of you. There's 20,000 registered voters in the Lisle Library District that should have a say over their taxation. Okay? And the other thing is, I'm really concerned that this Lisle Library Board, and I voted for people on this board, and I think I'm really worried that this library board has lost its way. Not only are the maintenance projects not completed, though they could have been done while the library was closed by 3 months. The library was closed for 3 months, and like we have 50 plus employees. None of the employees were furloughed. None of the employees took pay cuts. While the Park District had furloughed employees, laid off employees, and some of the people took pay cuts. And then the Lisle Library Board voted for raises for the people, though the library was closed for 3 months. So when you hear this presentation, think about the financial impact, okay? And the other thing the library could have done, the library was closed for 3 months. That's 3 months of services not rendered. Why didn't we get a one-time tax rebate? Did not see that. So as I step through this, again, I encourage you, the stakeholders that were personally invited here, not the 20,000, but these two organizations, ask the tough questions. Ask because if you're a homeowner here, you're going to get this is going to be impacting your tax bill. Challenge what is being told. The consultants that are here, they know their stuff, but they're being paid. They're being paid by your taxpayer money. So challenge the status quo, and think about the big term, and think about the fact that shouldn't 20,000 people have a say over the future of this library? Thank you.
All right. I see no one else in the room. Is there any email comments or anybody?
There isn't, but I just want to make an announcement again. If you have a phone on along with your computer, if you could choose one or the other, because we're getting a little reverb happening. And also, I know that we didn't get any emails, no, to answer your question. We do have an attendee who was an panelist, so I'm going to unmute that person. Marie, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Excellent. So we've got everybody in there. Okay.
So nobody else would be prepared.
No other online participants.
Okay, then next item on the agenda, before we actually get into the agenda, just to remind everybody, board members, this being a special board meeting, that we got to stick to the agenda. We still hear feedback too?
Yeah, we're hearing some feedback. So if you're not actively speaking, if you could please mute your microphone. That'll help it because we have a lot of people on and some are on their phones and some are on their computers. Okay, great.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is introductions for CCS. Did Director Weinstein want to?
I'll just begin, but I just want to welcome our guests from the Lisle Women's Club and Friends and Foundation to this meeting. I think it's so important that we hear from groups that founded the library and who have such strong ties to the community here. I know I sent you a lot of information, or at least access to a lot of information on our website. It talks about our history, the history of our facility improvement and discussions, reports, and all kinds of things like that. So I want to assure you all that this is not a test. Tonight's discussion is not a test of that information. You don't have to know our complete history to be able to comment on our current facility, to talk about our needs or any improvements that you'd like to see. This meeting is about hearing from forward-thinking people like yourselves, and just to help the library make the best decisions for our future. So I wanted to thank everybody for participating, and I will turn it over to Mark Rogers. He is a member from CCS, our owner's representative. Mark?
Sure, thank you, Tatiana. And hello, everyone. So you can find me on the screen, I'm waving. I know there's quite a few people on here today. But again, I'm Mark Rogers. I'm from CCS. I'm actually a Lisle resident. So I'm very excited to be part of this planning process the library has undertaken. I wanted to introduce myself, and also the architects are on board before I go into a brief history of this project. Don McKay and Amy Schmeeding from Sheehan Nagel Hartree are on this call as well. They're here to really listen in to everything that you have to say. It's really important to get community feedback from stakeholders that are, at different points in the community, have been here for different amounts of years, whether you were here for a year or 10 years or your whole life. It's important to hear your feedback, and it's important for the design team to hear that as they start at the preliminary concept stage. Don and Amy, anything else that you'd want to say before I jump in?
No, other than thank you for agreeing to participate. This kind of community engagement we consider to be very important to the design process. So as Mark said, we are here to listen tonight.
All right. Well, so with that being said, I wanted to start off with a brief history of what the Lisle Library District Board has gone through over the past few years. And I know in the packet that you had received, there was a timeline that dated back to 2017. But in talking to the board and Director Weinstein, we know that there's been discussions about the needs of the library, I think dating back all the way to 2013. But really where we can start putting some bullet points as to where things really got moving, we can date that back to 2017. So I'll start there. Back in 2017, there was a community engagement process that the district went through. That engagement process resulted in a number of surveys being conducted where needs were identified. And some of that history, and we did have links, I'll actually share a screen right now. There's a dashboard that is live on the Lisle Library District's website. It is called the capital improvement page. So I'm just going to go to that so you can see here. I'm zoomed in right now, but you can see this is under About Us. There's a capital projects page. And if you click on that, you'll get to the screen you're seeing here, which has a quick dashboard. I'm highlighting this because we're not going to go into detail on the whole history tonight, but I would like to give you some feedback. And zoom in, I lost it, there we go. If you click on these boxes, you can actually get to see a zoomed in events. And if you hover over the buttons, you can see public meetings and if they were televised or if there's documents associated with them. For instance, if I click on this purple dot here, I can actually get to the presentation to the board from the community engagement session. A couple of the things I wanted to highlight from that is the public commented as far back as then as needing to update spaces such as the children's space, material resources, and identifying how you get into the building. As some of you may know, getting to the front entrance of the building can be a challenge with this library. So things were at least started to be identified back then. From there, the district formed a strategic planning committee. And in November of 2018, a strategic plan was approved by the board. That strategic plan outlined a number of objectives. One of the objectives was to facilitate a welcoming facility and campus that meets the community's needs, encourages utilization, and fosters an enriching environment. Part of that identified in the plan was an approach that identified improvements to the facility. And if you go into that document, you can actually see there are 17 different bullet points in there, things such as providing restrooms on all levels. I'm not sure how many of you have had children using the children's department and potentially have to use a washroom. It's down a flight of stairs or down an elevator run. We've heard stories of children, having issues with having to run downstairs or not making it downstairs to get to a restroom. It creates an awkward situation, an embarrassing situation for those kids. It really isn't necessary. Things such as group and study space improvements were identified as needs. The spaces allocated within the building right now are very large meeting rooms, whereas today, especially with the current situation, a lot of times you might want a room that fits one or two people. They can spread out obviously with COVID, but you want to have some of the smaller spaces, not just large 10 to 15 person rooms. The foyer experience was identified again as how do we get into the building? Right now, there is a staff member present when you walk into the building at a folding table, but that wasn't always the case, as most of us know. Being a Lisle resident myself, walking there the first time when I moved to Lisle, and I didn't realize you had to walk into the building, down a flight of stairs, and then you finally get to the first staff member because of the way it was set up. So that was all identified back in the strategic plan. The district decided to continue along that process, and before moving forward with any capital improvement projects, facility and condition assessment was completed in 2019. That was done and identified over $2 million worth of projects in that day's dollars. So, you have escalation that increases over time that needed to be done basically to maintain the status quo of the building. So not to update it, to put it to modern needs, but just to maintain the status quo over time. So obviously it's a large capital expenditure just to maintain status quo. So the next step, the library decided to bring on CCS as they continued their discussions. And what we did is try to identify basically ballpark ranges of costs or scope to try to hone in on what the cost of a capital improvement project could be, depending on what the board wanted to do, and how to fit in that scope and what process to follow. So we've been working through that process for a while. It ended up in being that the board wanted to proceed with an architecture selection process, just how we have Sheehan, Nagel, Hartree architects on board with us today. And they're tasked not with going full steam on a specific project yet. They're tasked with trying to identify what a scope of work would be that would meet the needs of the community, be fiscally responsible for the long term of the facility and the community, and try to put together a package that the board can support and get their arms wrapped around. That this is what is going to be the long-term solution for the district. So right now where we're at, I'm going to click in the concept phase if you're seeing my screen. Right now is we are sitting here in January with the stakeholder engagement meeting. What we've done to date is Sheehan, Nagel, Hartree has started a programming phase where basically they listen to the staff needs and board survey results, trying to identify, okay, what needs to be prioritized, because with any project, when you have limited funds, you might have a wish list, but you can't always afford everything that you want. All of us would like to drive the shiny new car, but sometimes you can't afford the Mercedes and you need to figure out, okay, maybe the Ford or the Chevy is the better model for us. So how do we identify what priorities are that you need to have and which will meet the community's needs? So that programming effort has gone through the paces over the past 2 months roughly. And this month, the architect team will be providing options and the initial draft concepts to the board. But ahead of that, we wanted to get your feedback. So I'm going to flip to another screen, and hopefully you may have seen this, I should say. This is a supplement that Director Weinstein had sent out ahead of this meeting. And I wanted to share this, so I'm getting on to the next step of this tonight's agenda. Is we wanted to go through the survey results. And we thought this was a good launching board to get your feedback, because it gives you a sense of what the board and staff have identified as priorities for the project. And we're going to ask you a couple of questions. One being, do you see any other priorities, being a community member, that need to be looked at and really thought through? And also, is there anything that we need that needs to be, higher or lower on this list based on your experience? And we're just looking for opinions. It's not like a directive. It's your thoughts, and you are the stakeholders in this community. And the more input we can get, the better. So with that being said, I'll walk through and I'll ask some questions. And I think since we're not in a room together, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But what I'll do is I did take everyone's name down who's a panelist here. And I'll ask for your comment as long as President Hummel's okay. I'll ask a question and ask for each one to provide some feedback if you'd like.
Yeah, if you have a list, that's fine. I was just going to have people raise their hand and then maybe go to the phone calls. But if you got their list of names, maybe that's better just to do that.
We'll start with that, and if it gets muddy, we can adjust. So the screen you're seeing on this, the screen you're seeing currently is the board and staff shared top space priorities. What is key here, Nagel Hartree helps us identify where there was crossover. So these items that are bold, I'll call it, or more visible, are where staff and board results aligned. You can see universal design being a key component for each, both the board and the staff. Universal design means that you have access, equal access for all visitors to the building, visitors, users, staff. Right now, we don't have that. We don't have a public restroom on the second floor, the children's floor. There's other issues with space getting around, toilets, restrooms, water fountains, things of that nature that would have to be looked at. Also, the children's area was a prime focus. Again, I don't want to repeat too much, but the restrooms, the family restroom and nursing room was critical to the board. Reconfiguring staff space and storage efficiency to maximize social distancing and efficiency. Right now, I'm not sure how familiar, and I don't expect really anyone to be familiar with the staff areas, but if you go into the back of the building on the first floor, there's a diagonal wall that stretches from the south side of the building to the north. And that diagonal wall basically forms a triangular space for staff space behind that. As you can imagine, when you're trying to fit in furniture into a triangular space, it's not very efficient and it's tough to use. So things like that we'd want to reconcile within a project. Also having drive-up window service and a warm and welcoming atmosphere are all things that we really strive for on this project. So hearing that, my first question to you is, from your personal experiences using the library, are there any top space-related priorities that you'd like to see or like to talk about? I'm just going to go in the list of when people announced that they were here. So Pat Briggs, if you wouldn't mind, if you have something to share, that'd be great.
I do not go into the library a lot. I use it online a lot, and I use it for meetings a lot. And I know you're talking more about the inside, but parking and the entrance are real concerns with me. Sometimes you have to park really far away, and in bad weather, that's not always great when you're at night, like, you know, when it gets dark. I like the fact that the meeting rooms, I don't have to go through all the library. I like the location near the entrance. I don't know.
Well, it's all fair. Appreciate that. Mary Kilroy, if you're available.
Sorry about that. I guess when I was going through the notes, I was questioning what would the purpose of the drive-up window be? Just for returning books after hours? Or is there more to it than that?
It's typically more to it than that. We see a lot of libraries have this service. You can drop off books, you can potentially pick up books. It's typically staffed, or if it's not directly staffed with someone working there, you know, their workstation, there might be a bell or something of that nature to get someone there, but typically it's staffed. And in a COVID situation, it's helpful potentially because there's less contact and someone having to come into the building. And then the other part of it that we're seeing a huge, before COVID even, and why there'd be a need for it, would be an elderly community. If someone wants to, go to the library and get a book that they know they want, they don't have to necessarily get out of the car to go and get that book, whether it's elderly or disabled in some cases. That's a huge benefit.
Good point. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Kathy Kowitzel, if you're on the phone. Not sure.
Kathy, I think you got. Oh, there
Can you
go.
hear me on the?
Yep.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm having these technical issues, but a couple of things. I don't know if it is still popular in libraries, amenities such as coffee shops. I know at one point the library added the vending machines in an effort to address that sort of need. And I'm wondering if a space that could, for something like that, could potentially be revenue generating if leased out to a provider. And then in terms of community engagement and the critical role that libraries play as a sort of town square, if you will, sort of a connecting body among it within the community. And I'm thinking of, the 777 gallery is phenomenal in that regard. And the little glass case that the library so graciously lets organizations use to promote things. I'm wondering about perhaps a space that would even expand on opportunities to connect with community organizations. Then in terms of the meeting space, I know that the meeting rooms at the library are in constant demand. And just wondering about the adequacies of that, and again, even perhaps an opportunity for revenue generating by renting meeting space. That's what I was thinking at this time.
That's great. Appreciate that feedback. And I think what we'll do, just to be clear with everyone, I'd like to go through everyone, ask for feedback, and then we might circle back and maybe the board would have some questions, just follow up or things of that nature. But I am writing down the comments that you're making, so don't think that we're brushing over them as we're going through. So thank you for that. I think next I had on my list, Kelly Dixon.
Yes, thank you. Some of the things that I was thinking about is I do like the improvements of having the snacks right in the entryway as you're coming in. But if we could, I think piggybacking on Kathy Quitzel's comments about a possible area for either coffee or snacks. I know that when my son was younger, it would have been a nice opportunity for him to grab a drink and spend a little bit more time in between activities. And then the other, staying on with the children's area, it would be lovely to have it all in one level if possible, but also have a younger section where you could do a lot more touch, tactile kind of activities, as well as an area designated for older children who would have computers and things like that. That I think would be a nice opportunity. And then a space for a family area and more community rooms designed for children. So different activities that possibly the children could spend more time in. And I know that currently one of the things that I've talked to other people about is the lighting. There's dark spots within the library, so having it be more open and kind of having an outside-inside feel, where currently we're kind of boxed into the atmosphere. So kind of going along with both the board members and staff in that warm and welcoming atmosphere. I think that those are the real fundamental pieces. And then everything else that you've added on, I do agree with, would improve.
Great, thank you, Kelly.
Yep.
And we'll come back, I'll have at least a second, if not a third round of questions. So we'll come through and keep on getting your feedback. The other person I had on there, and I'm not sure if we can hear you, is I think it's Mike, and sorry if I'm saying this wrong, but Mike Check.
Yes, good evening.
Great, hi Mike, thank you.
I just want to preface and say that I love the Lisle Library. I've lived here for 30 years. I really enjoy the warm and knowledgeable staff and the job that they do. I enjoy the fact that there's new material always coming in, bestsellers, new movies, new music, etc. I just wanted to say that obviously at the top. And then as far as what has been mentioned about the physical layouts and stuff, and yeah, I agree. Having the bathroom on the first level would be an issue for all the children. Secondly, that drive-up service window, yeah, it does appeal to me for people who would have difficulty as far as access to come in and save time, especially during the winter. And I do like the fact that as you enter the building, you are really close to the meeting rooms. You come in for meetings, enjoy the fact that they're right there at the entrance. Actually, in retrospect, you know, I don't wander that much in other parts of the library to come up with some of the issues that have been raised as far as the lighting and so forth. But you know, they seem to be worthy to look at. But generally speaking, I'm a happy user and look forward to being a member of the Friends of the Library. Basically, we have not met. I'm very new. We just started basically in March, as far as which is when we basically shut down. So, but thank you very much for your presentation to this point.
Great. So President Hummel, I'll turn it to you. I'm going to go to the next page, and topic 2 would be vision, but I wanted to see you were.
We have Marie Hassey on the line too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good catch. I'm glad you guys caught that. So I'm sorry, Marie.
Hi, sorry, it's okay, no worries. So for me, I was a heavy library user when my girls were very young. We were there many times a week. I would say, without a doubt, the bathroom issue would be the top priority to me. My girls are grown now, but that's just something I hear this from people in the community, is the bathrooms and getting the kids with strollers down there fast enough. So I would say that's number one. The second thing I think would be great would be that drive-up service window, especially in times of cold and snow. For anybody, it could be for a family, it could be for seniors, it could be for whoever, it could be because of COVID. I think that would be an awesome addition to the library, to have that kind of a service for people. So I really like that idea. And I also do like the fact that when you come into the entrance, that those meeting rooms are right there. So if you do have community members that want to come in for a meeting, they can enter right there and the meeting is right there, and they don't have to go all through the library. So I do like that part of the way it's set up right now. Now, are we just talking about physical additions? I mean, just physical changes? We're not talking about anything online as far as adding any online services, are we?
Not at this time, but I'd let Director Weinstein or President Hummel refer to that if you'd like to.
Well, I think this is all part of service offerings, and if you have something to share.
Okay, yes, I will. This is something I've talked about for a long time, and we use this a lot. We also use the Swan Library Service through Downers Grove and Woodridge and Glen Ellen. We have, the barcode on my library card, and we do use that, and it's a great way to hunt down books that you may not necessarily find. I know we have interlibrary loans, and you can request a book, which is great, and the library will get it for you. But my daughter and I, we actually enjoy finding the books at the different libraries, and I can't even tell you the number of libraries we've gone through in the last couple of years. I mean, I was just at Wooddale a couple of weeks ago to get a DVD that I desperately had to have. And it's kind of a fun thing. I don't know, I kind of like it. I like being able to find the book and go and get it if I choose to. So it would be nice to have that service with Lisle personally. Just something I would like to see. And that's really all I have for now.
Great. So before going on to vision and some other questions I had, I did want to ask if there was any discussion that the board maybe had or follow-up questions on something you might have heard. If not, I can move on to the next bit of this.
Any trustees have a comment?
Yes, this is Liz. And I know that Mary Kilroy had answered one question or had spoken one comment. Mary, did you have anything additional you wanted to add? I don't know if we kind of left you a little bit too soon.
No, actually, that was the only question I had. Most of the stuff that was listed online by Director Weinstein, I was in agreement with. The bathrooms needed to be much more easily accessible. My only question was the drive-up service. I love the Lisle Library. I think we're very fortunate to have it. So these improvements would be welcoming.
Okay, thanks.
Any other trustees? All right.
All right. So I'll go to the next slide here, and this is the third page of what was sent, or was been page 2 of the supplement you received. This is a question as it related to the vision for the Lisle Library District's renovation and expansion. So obviously it's kind of a more of a gray area. It's not just bricks and mortar, but what is your vision for it? And the board and staff really kind of agreed with their main topics and what they highlighted. So it was optimizing space from the board, and that was also heavily selected for the staff. It was creating a clear identity from the street and a welcoming identity from the board as part 2. And that was really stemmed from the fact that you have to come in on a side street, essentially, from what the address is, being Front Street, and you have to come around to the front entrance, which doesn't really point to where you need to go. So they wanted to create a warm and inviting identity up front, and staff played off that as well with the warm and welcoming character in place for community connection. Another bit on the board was that obviously we've been hearing a lot tonight already, was the improved youth services or children's department and making that better. And I think we've written it down at least 3 or 4 times right now already. So it's good to hear that everyone's agreeing with that. And then last, staff also identified creating a 21st century public library. I think that it is, again, speaking to what most of you are saying, and having the spaces and the services that align with today's needs. So with that being said, I'm going to ask another question and go around again just to prep you, and I'll go in the same order so you all have a moment to think about it. But seeing the board and the staff survey results, do you agree with this vision? Are there other considerations that you'd like to see? What is your vision for the library? So other than just bricks and mortar, I can say. So again, Pat Briggs, if you're available to speak to that, if it's any different.
I'm good. I totally agree. Identity from the street is something that needs to be improved on. Again, that whole front entrance, and I think you made it real clear, your street address versus where the front door is. It's just very confusing. I'm really curious about the 21st century public library, because I guess I'm not really sure what the future libraries are supposed to look like. I do believe a lot of people think there's going to be more and more virtual, but working in a school, I see how much kids use books and read books and need to touch books. So I know books are still really critical to our future, and especially the youth services area. So I'm just curious what that new library look is about, but I totally agree with, and of course they know about space, so I totally agree with these ideas.
So I'll hit it a little bit, and then I might even ask Don or Amy to jump in on the 21st century library, as they're aware of trends as well. One of the things that I see and see seeing on a number of libraries is an issue with being flexible enough for the next 10, 15, 20 years after a large capital outlay. Something that we've seen is a constant need for power connection. Where do you put your laptop that you can sit there and work for 2-3 hours and have your laptop plugged in? Many libraries that were maybe built in the 90s or even the early 2000s didn't have much, and laptops weren't as used, right? Everyone had their desktop. That was just beginning. You didn't know that you needed to have quad receptacles at every group table that was in the middle of the floor. Another thing is seeing how libraries are adapting, right? There is still a need for books and the physical materials, but there also is a need for that community space. because people are using the computers and online and social media and things like that more often. A lot of times they want to get to a place where they can meet with people, they can interact, they can have conversations and discussion. So is the library a place that enables that discussion or facilitates it? Is something that you really want to look for. Don, do you want to take it from there? And anything else you see?
Before
Sure,
Don,
I'll add to that, and I'm sorry.
I just give you a quick, I do hear still like a little feedback sometimes, so if somebody could just probably mute their phone still.
Or
Or
mute
or mute the computer, one of
while
the,
someone else speaks.
okay. I'm sorry, Don, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Go
that's all right. Yeah, I'll make a few comments, and I suspect that Tatiana and Beth may have some thoughts on this subject as well. You know, I would say that the idea of a 21st century library is not a universal idea. It really can be very different from one library to another. So as library designers, one of the things that we try to keep up to date on are what are current library trends. And I'll just mention a few that we've seen in many public libraries. You know, Mark mentioned the idea of a library as a community center. That's something that resonates very strongly with some communities. Some communities really prioritize the need for small group study rooms. So a lot of communities are seeing a lot of homeschooling or tutoring going on. And so these small group study rooms become very valuable to them. Technology has become a huge issue in libraries, and we've seen changes, happen very quickly. It wasn't that long ago we were building computer labs into public library buildings because not everybody had a computer at home. Now we're trying to find ways to accommodate, making sure we find ways to accommodate people that bring their own devices into the library and make sure that there's plenty of power and access to good internet and things like that. Maker spaces are another thing that have become popular in many libraries. And there are some park districts that are taking this on as well. And these are, the idea of a maker space, again, is something that varies widely. So we've done digital maker spaces that give people access to things like professional grade cameras so that students can make videos for class, things like that. Other maker spaces include sewing machines, or they become kind of arts and crafts type facilities for people. So we discuss these things, these types of trends with the library, and then what we're really interested in is trying to figure out which of those trends really are appropriate for the Lisle library community. What are the things that's really what we're interested in, is how do we tailor this to the needs of the Lisle library community? And so, discussions like the one that we're having tonight are very helpful to us in that regard. But 21st century library means can mean many different things. But I think, the thing that Mark mentioned about designing something that is flexible and adaptable, if we've learned anything over the last several decades, it's that things change, and that the best thing that we can do as library designers is give the library something that they can relatively easily adapt to new trends that come down the line.
Agreed. I'll just chime in, and I couldn't agree more with what Don said. Just to jump off on the formats, libraries are so dynamic, and we support many formats of information, entertainment. We used to have cassette tapes here, now we have CDs, and now we have streaming. So the library has to be a flexible space. And I will say that as a community, we have a strong faction of traditional library users, and I'll use the term traditional for like the people who come in and check out books. So we have a strong population of traditional users, but we also have a very strong population of, I'll put it, technical users, or people who like our digital offerings. So we really have to find a balance there for both of those users. And then again, as far as 21st century library, I think the staff, I think we use that term just so that the library can be a flexible and accommodating space for all users, all types of users, as well as being digitally flexible too. So, you know, having the power outlets, having rooms where you could plug into a smart board. If you're having a smaller group meeting, you can plug in your flash drive and then show a presentation to a group of maybe 10 to 15 people. Things like that.
All right. So hopefully that answered your question, Pat. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I'll go back to the list then. And Mary Kilroy, if you wouldn't mind, if you have anything to add?
Yeah, it's interesting because my kids are all grown now, and so I'm not in the library like I used to be. So my books are done online. I borrow them from the library. So I also was curious about the 21st Century Library. I'm so grateful that I'm on this call because it's a great learning process for me as well. And I think the ideas that I've heard being discussed are tremendous and very important. And I do feel that we still need that feel and that actual book, while we still need to go and be advanced in the tech with the technology that's coming out. We need this space, this Lisle library, this brick and mortar where people can come together and either do old school or jump into the future. So I'm excited to see what's going to be coming down the pike for the library. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on this call.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Kathy Kowitzel?
Okay, I think you can hear me now, right?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm a little timid about responding because I think my ideas are, my thoughts are going to sound sort of broad and vague, but I'm gonna go ahead and speak. A couple of things. We've already mentioned a number of times about the library as a grand connector to the community at large. So some of these theme along that idea. And my bringing these things up is not to say that the library is not already doing marvelous things in any of these areas, but I think we, in Lisle, with regards to schools, since we're a university town, we have the benefit of having formal education from preschool through graduate work. And I just always would like to see collaborative efforts between the library and the schools. Other collaboration opportunities are perhaps there with the other governmental units. We are very, I think we're very fortunate with our village manager is very interested in the benefit of shared services on a variety of levels. The INET consortium, of course, is a great example that's been in existence for a long, long time. And I think all of us in governance should look for opportunities for additional shared services of all kinds that could result in savings to the taxpayers. I have read often that it's been popular at libraries for a long time to develop other lending collections beyond books and media, things like tools, etc. I don't know how practical that is. It certainly sounds like a lot of work, but it's something that I've read about with interest. Something that is near and dear to me, as most of you know, is the museum complex in Lisle. And I think that the Park District makes a wonderful partner with the Heritage Society in terms of facilities. But I've often thought and have expressed that I think the library would make a more practical partner in terms of programming. So I see that as a potential opportunity. And let's see. The open space that the library has through having the two neighboring residential lots, of course, present all sorts of opportunities for outdoor programming. Perhaps out in things, things as diverse as botany, say, or gardening, or athletic, just all kinds of things. And that's all I have to say at this time.
There we go. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Kelly Dixit.
Thank you. I too liked all the comments so far. Some of the things that I think would be beneficial, having a teenager at home, and post-COVID is what I'm thinking, which is what we're really looking at, is a collaborative space. So I love the 21st century public library idea and concept, so that older, in between, I'm sorry, I'm not like, everything's kind of going into one place. Let me start off by saying, as a library, I feel like it is the center point of a community. So as new residents come in, it is one of the key things that is an attractive factor to living in Lisle, having access to the library. One of the nice aspects also is that it's big enough, but yet small enough to get around. Other libraries can be 3 and 4 stories and have mass areas, but I feel that our library has a great layout and ability to keep things small enough so that you still feel a part of the community, so that when you do walk into the library, you recognize faces and you recognize people as you're walking through, and also the staff is very welcoming. So the 21st concept is an important piece to that factor, because today I feel like we are losing some of the youth population, the young children that, as Marie Hasse had said, when her children were young and when my son was young, we were in the library at least once or twice a week. And as he's grown, he has not had the need to go to the library as much, or the desire, because it wasn't a cool place to be. And I feel like that's what we need to have, is a place that is up to date, also not just physically, but technology. So I like that ability to kind of transform as we go, at which we have seen. But there's a huge population between, I would say, 12 and 17 that naturally don't have a place to gather in our community. And it would be wonderful to be able to bring that back, because I know when I was growing up, that was an important piece to my community. I'd love still to go to the library, meet up with friends, and with the internet and technology, having a collaborative space where it's not a quiet place. It's not a place where you're shushed anymore. It's a place that is, a place where you can talk and communicate via electronic devices, and not have to have that conversation, but still have that community feel. I think that is one of the keys. I do like the idea of a historical piece to the library as well. So I don't know how that could kind of interconnect, and maybe just a wall or a space where you do show off the history of the library, which I think we already do. We do have a space, but have it be a more visible place, and have it be a little bit more maybe interactive. And I also, kind of piggybacking with that 21st century public library concept, I don't know if there's an opportunity for satellite library space. So as Kathy was saying, collaboratively, we have the Park District, we have the space over in at Village Hall. Is there a way, or even out by the university, a place where we can have maybe some collaboration, or a space area that's designated, kind of similar, so that everyone has access to it quickly and efficiently, a physical place to go and have access. So I think that, to me, at this point, we're talking about a blank slate, and that would be a great wish list, is to see if we could somehow come up with some satellite Lisle library space. I think that's it for me.
Mark, you're on mute.
No, I was gonna,
Sorry about that. So thank you, Kelly, is what I had said. But I was trying to turn it over to Mike Check, just keeping it in the same line we had last time. Mike, if there was anything you wanted to add.
Yes, thank you, Mark. A lot of good things have just been mentioned. I agree also, the identity from the street, any way that can be strengthened as far as, the proximity of the library and proper signage and so forth. One thing that takes me back is a good friend who taught English second language, and she was a resident of Lisle, and her pupil was also. She had a few over the course of years, and she could never meet at Lisle Library. This is 8-9 years ago, and she had to take off for another. I believe she went to a different library because they had more rooms available. So yes, I think that's a fact. That's something that should be looked at. And I don't know exactly what the solution is as far as from a physical layout place, but that is something that rings true from the past that I remember. And then this common area, is intriguing, again, for people to gather, and exactly how that would work. I'm thinking of my generation group, when it comes to, especially presently, it's difficult, obviously, but even non-COVID times, some people are reluctant. But if it's a comforting, if it's a location that people feel safe and comfortable, I think that would be a wonderful idea, and have it also. You would have different groups probably go in based on the time of day or something, just because it's a natural mix. And then, as Kathy Quitzel mentioned, we look to partner with the library with programs. We have a number of programs from the Lisle Heritage Society, which I'm a board member of, and it is a nice fit, and we've worked together. And I think going down the road, that would be a stronger bond, I think, would be a really good idea. That's pretty much it, Mark.
Appreciate that, Mike. Thank you. The last on my list, I believe, was Marie.
Yes. So I think the list you've compiled is very good. The vision between the staff and the board members, I think, pretty much summed it up. As far as my thoughts, obviously the space, optimizing the space, keeping it a warm community center, a place where all ages would feel welcome to gather, whether, I'm not quite sure what that would be. But like I said, we've had meetings there. The women's club has had meetings there. Girl Scouts, when I was in Girl Scouts, we had meetings there. It's a great place for all different groups in the community to come. And I'd like to see that continue. And as far as the 21st century part, I have been in a couple of libraries where they do have a makery space. The most notable one, I would say, would be Elmhurst. Theirs is quite amazing. It's in the whole basement of the library. They had everything from a bunch of sewing machines to photography equipment to 3D printers, as well as other type of shop type activities for kids. It was amazing. But no one's ever seen it. I would say it's worth checking out. But something along those lines would be a wonderful addition to the library. And it could be something even that would say maybe rotate. You would have a different, say, exhibit, every few months or something if you wanted to try something else. Say you bring in a 3D printer, you can borrow one, and you have that available for a while. And just thoughts. But I would say definitely we need to just kind of keep going with the times. Things change quickly, as we have learned in the last year. So it's nice to be able to pivot and do what we can to keep it a good community space. And that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I will have one final question for everyone, and it'll be a very simple one, I hope. You can expand upon it as you want. But before jumping into that, President Hummel or Director Weinstein, did you have any questions, or does the board have any questions for discussion on this round of topics?
Any board members have a question, just wave your hand. See anybody? So.
All right.
Go ahead, Mark.
I saw Trustee Norton's hand go up.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Oh, you know what? I think she's hiding it. Treasurer Norton.
But before I ask my question, I'm just going to hijack really quickly to say how happy I am that we're having this conversation. I'm honored to get to hear from these wonderful constituents, people who are part of the groups that founded the library. I'm really, truly thrilled that we're doing this and happy to hear every bit of what everyone has said tonight. And my question doesn't take us too far off of the track, and everyone, if you think it is, just knock it out and we'll move on. But since we're talking to groups here that are so closely affiliated with the history of the library and the mission of the library, I wanted to hear specifically from everyone here what it is that you think is sort of integral to the values of Friends of the Lisle Library and the groups here represented, the Women's Club, and in affiliation with the library. So what is integral to the missions of these groups that we should make sure that we keep in the forefront of the decisions that we're making? For example, if we were founded based on live music, then we would say, well, we need to make sure that we have rooms that have good acoustics in this future edition, so that we make sure that we address that, right? So I don't know enough of the history of the library and the missions of these affiliate groups to say what would be applicable here. So that's why I'm asking the question of what values, what mission driven things are integral to the projects that we have that we're looking at.
I can go through and ask if you have anything to add, whether you do or don't, you feel free to say otherwise. But I'll go through the same ways to make sure we answer the question. So, Pat, if you wouldn't mind, I'm sorry to put you up front, start off the bat and on the spot. But did you have any thoughts you could add to Jenny's question?
Are you throwing that at me?
If you wouldn't mind, and if not, you can say pass. Just say pass and I'll move on.
I'm ready to answer, and then I thought, I'm not sure if he said my name. Hold on here.
That's all you.
The Lisle Women's Club, I mean, the foundation of them was they got used books from wherever they could and opened basically a storefront and started loaning them out to community members. And the foundation really was to get books available for people. So I think that is, you know, obviously when you think of a library, that's the first thing you think of. And I guess I just want to go with high quality choices, both physical books and the online choices, and wherever else our reading is taking us, whether it be, you know, newspapers or magazines or whatever else is out there that people look at and read. I think the children's section is super important. All of us old women's club members, we're all saying when our kids were young, we spent a lot of time in the library between the special classes and the reading to our kids, even when they were in preschool age, to using it for research and things like that as they got older. So just maintaining high quality with that. And then of course, as the women's club, we love going there to meet, to, you know, have that ability. So those are some of the things that I see, if that helps you, Jenny.
Definitely. So that's the same question we'll just go through to give everyone an opportunity to add to that. So Mary, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Really, this is going to sound like a cheap way out, but I'm going to piggyback with Pat. Really, to me, improving the youth services is absolutely important, because we have to start with our youth to get them hooked on the library and the reading, and to maintain the traditional books, and to go forth with the 21st century. So that's really what concerns me the most.
Great. Going down the line, Kathy Quitzel, do you have anything to add from your point of view?
The Friends has a long history of two things about the Friends. The ability to sell books via the semi-annual book sales and the little book nook in the library. Those are both valuable revenue streams for the Friends to in turn support the library. So facilities that would support that in terms of allowing some storage and space for that. Then to your point, the Friends has a long history of providing programming. In recent years, that has been highly focused on concerts reflecting the particular passion of the board president. Prior to that, the programming was much more mixed with lectures on a variety of topics. I think it's important to get more of a blend like that. So having space where there's a place where things can be projected on screen and seen, and that the acoustics are good would be important to that. But again, thinking of the library being beyond its four walls, the Friends also could look to other spaces for that as well. But I think that programming is a nice way to draw foot traffic to the library. That's all I can think of right at this moment.
It's helpful. Kelly, would you like to add anything to that?
Coming from the women's club perspective, I think Pat covered pretty much everything that we need to kind of stress is that true passion for learning and enabling the community to have those tools available at any point in time. And I think the foundation of why the Women's Club started it was that, and it's carried through. And I would love to see that baton in 2021 be the interactive public library, the 21st century public library. I think we're headed in the right direction for that. So I think our mission is aligned from the historical perspective. Does that answer your question, Jenny?
Got a smile and a nod there, so that's great. Mike, do you have anything from the phone you'd like to add?
Yeah, Mark, as far as, I come from more from the Friends group, but actually, again, I haven't been to one meeting yet because, I was kind of decided to join up, I think it was April. And so, basically I participated in a couple of the used book sales, helped a little bit there, know the concept with the revenue stream and what's generated there for the usually the concerts and the Sunday afternoon, and that's all good. At this moment, I'm sure there's other avenues and there's other things that this group, once we get off the ground, could do. What that is right now, I'd like to get together with the group and obviously sit down, and I'm sure we'll come up with with other ideas that will move us forward. So yeah, I mean, what Jenny mentioned, like, a room that have the acoustics for for somebody to come in for folk music or whatever. Yeah, that's really a valid point, and that's something that should be considered, and is something to look at. But again, maybe in another couple of months I'll have a better idea. Thank you.
Appreciate that. It's been a tough time for everyone. And last but definitely not least, Marie, you have anything else to add?
I think the comments from my fellow Women's Club members pretty much covered it. There's no reason to repeat it. I felt everyone covered, the important parts of this and what we are looking for. So I'm good. Thank you.
Great. All right. So it might be a little bit of a duplicate, unless there are any other library board questions before I ask my final question. I don't see any hands right now, so I'll ask a very simple question, and it might be just a very simple one answer or not. And you can answer it one of two ways if you can't think of it right off the bat. But is there one particular service that you find most valuable to you that the library provides? Or you can answer, if it's not one service that currently is provided, is there a service that you can think of that you wish could be provided or was provided more often, or something along those natures? But just one service that you, in your personal use of the library, really value. It'd be great to hear that from you. So Pat, if you wouldn't mind answering that one.
I would say the books and reading books is probably the thing I value the most with the library.
Great, thank you. Mary?
Sorry. I'm going to say books too. Being able to down or borrow books electronically has been a great help to me.
Great. Kathy, what would be the best service?
I too would say the books. I take advantage of the audio books quite a lot.
Great. All right. I said this would be a quick one. Kelly, anything, one service that's most important?
I would definitely agree about the books, but I give that a given because we're a library. The one service that next to the books is the staff. Being able to go and talk to a human being is so important. Having someone available on the phone when you can't walk into the library is so valuable. That's the key for me.
That's great. Mike, same
Yeah, Mark,
question.
Mark, that was the easiest question for me, and it comes off quickly. It would be the book discussion, monthly discussion groups. So, for instance, I've been a member of the science fiction group for a number of years, and there's a lot of other ones. There's a core of people that have been in that group for as long as I've been. I would say 12 or 15 years. Now I don't read every book. I kind of look at what it is, but I'm getting together with those people now through Zoom is still good, and it's always a treat once you read a book, and again, to find out what your peers think one way or the other. So yeah, it kind of combines obviously the books, but the interaction with the other members of those groups. For a while, I was with the nonfiction group, and that was fine. And then, but the day they met, that was I had a conflict. But the science fiction group is the one I've kind of been with. So that's my favorite service, I guess, that I take advantage of.
That's great. That's a good example. Marie, do you have anything else?
I would say books, whether it be physical and online, the selections that are available. As far as online goes, I would say the number of copies. Sometimes the wait list is very, very long, so it's nice to have extra copies of those purchased. And then the books themselves. So those are my two top things.
This is Kathy. I have one more thing to say if I could.
Of course.
And Mike jogged my memory on this. I read recently an article which I found very interesting that said that, and this was pre-COVID, that a significant number of people surveyed said that using the library relieved symptoms of loneliness. And of course, certainly we all know that in COVID, the problem of loneliness and isolation has been amplified. So that reminds me of, that I think extremely valuable that the library offers are things like the summer read program, certainly what Mike said about the book reading clubs. Then I like how the summer reading program then brings people together, an opportunity, the end of it, for a gathering. And so things like this, be it in COVID or not in COVID, bringing people together for these group activities is a critical resource that the library offers.
Oh, that's great. I really appreciate all this feedback. I know we've already spent an hour and a half going through some of my questions on that, so I would like to turn it to Director Weinstein and President Hummel for others. But in closing, at least for my perspective, number one, I wanted to thank you for all of the input. I know it can be difficult when you're trying to use a GoToMeeting and facilitate questions and true discussion, but really do see that all of you put in some time and thought into your answers and came to this prepared, so thank you for that. But also wanted to make sure you knew that your feedback is important. It helps inform the designers, but at the same time, it also helps the board. The board meets monthly or sometimes more than a month, and they're trying to make decisions and push things in the right direction. But at the end of the day, the library is there to serve the community. And so getting your feedback and what's important to you helps them make those informed decisions and puts things on the right track and keeps it there. So wanted to make sure you knew how important that was, and hopefully these dialogues can continue, whether that's going back to Director Weinstein or amongst others that you might know within the community. Now, the flip side of that is it's great having you as supporters of the library. as this process rolls along, that, if there are questions out there or discussions that are being had, pointing people to the dashboard online, or, being able to ask and answer some questions. It's a healthy dialogue, and it's good to have. So I just want to thank you for that. I'll turn it over to President Hummel and Director Weinstein, but really appreciate all the input from everybody.
All right, thank you, Mark. Director Weinstein, did you?
Just again, thank you all for participating, for your thoughtful and honest answers. We've been marinating in this for months and months and months, and actually years. So hearing your perspectives is so important, and also confirmed a lot of what we've been marinating in. So thank you so much for participating tonight. And the door is always open, the email is always open, the phone is always open. So if you ever need to touch base, you know where to reach me.
Did you have anything with it?
Oh, I just
Sure.
wanted to thank everyone also, and I just wanted to say personally that one thing maybe that we didn't mention tonight was just, it kind of, some people sort of touched on it, but all the new materials, how people, that's one of the first places they go in the library, and whether you're in youth services or in the adult area, and just, we'd love to have more space for that area, and I hope that we could plan for that.
Thank you. Does any other trustees have anything to add? Secretary Swistak.
I just wanted to say thank you to all the community members who joined us this evening and gave their honest input into this. It really helps me as a trustee to better understand where the community is coming from. And I really appreciate that. And I look forward to hearing from more stakeholders in the community as we continue this process. So thank you very much for all of you who joined us this evening.
Any other trustees? Oh, Vice President Bartelli.
I'd like to echo Trustee Swistak's remarks. Thank you so much for participating. And again, we do look forward to much more community engagement. Thank you for your time and input.
Trustee Duffy.
Everyone else has already covered the thank you. I actually want to say it was a nice bit of information to get related to the meeting room access when coming in. I don't think that was something that we have had a lot of conversation about up to this point. So just want to call it out as a good takeaway from this hour and a half. So thank you.
Any other trustees? All right, I'll just say thank you, everybody, also just for participating. That was good feedback, I'm sure, for the designers and the CCS and our board. So I appreciate your time. We value your opinion. There's nothing else. I think we're ready to make a motion to adjourn. Have a motion to adjourn.
This is Liz Sullivan. I move to adjourn.
Karen seconds. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Karen Larson. Aye. Thomas Duffy.
Thanks for giving me a second there, Chris. Aye.
Jenny Norton.
Aye.
Emily Lisle.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Thomas Hummel.
Aye, and we are adjourned at 8:35. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Thank you.